For media of the week, we actually watched the same thing. And since we were talking about the follow-up TV show of this, we thought we would just go ahead and watch the movie.
Yes. So Daniel had seen this a long time ago. I never had for whatever reason. I think I even remember Willow coming up in conversation with my dad once and him just going, "Oh yeah, that one was just bad."
It's kind of weird. I remember this movie popping up occasionally when I was a kid, back in the early '90s, and then it just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
It was almost kind of became lost media because I think they never, I think they released it on VHS, but then it took them a while to put it out on DVD, and then it took them a while to put it out on Blu-ray, although that might be George Lucas, um, but who of course was the producer and one of the writers on the movie, directed by
Ron
Opie.
Howard.
Yeah, Ron
Yes.
Howard. Yeah, Opie. Don't call him Opie.
Oh, I'm sure he loves that.
Oh, yeah.
Look. Ron Howard is great. He has strong genes, genes so strong that his daughter was able to run away from a T-Rex in high heels.
Yes, and yeah, exactly. Um, but I guess we should talk about this movie.
Yes, I guess we should talk about the movie itself.
Yes.
So, Willow is a very classic fantasy story about a, a, not a hobbit named
Yeah.
Willow who ends up becoming the protector of a human girl who is fated to bring about the defeat of the Dark Queen who is threatening the lands.
Mhm. And yeah, and of course the baby ends up in the little person village, and they decide that to just return the baby to her people, despite the fact that the evil queen's got hunting parties after the baby.
To be fair, yeah, that's right. They did know about that because the wolves showed up.
Right. Yeah. Um, and of course, since it was actually Willow's kids find the baby, but of course it's Willow, so he has to be the one to take the baby to safety, and they end up in the little crossroads, and that's where they meet Mad Mardigan, who's in a cage. Cordy, played by Val Kilmer. And he's kind of the he's like the Han Solo of the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just with the rogue cranked up to 11.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now, and yeah, so it's basically they go through some standard fantasy things. They have to go to this place to meet this person who will tell them the thing that will help them with the quest, and um, and how to put this. People have said, I've heard people say that this is basically, oh, this is just Star Wars with fantasy, and I don't quite see it. I see like the George Lucas doing his love of the hero with 1,000 faces thing, where it's like a very classic hero's journey type story.
Yeah.
But I think people comparing it to Star Wars in that way are off base.
Yeah, I think they're comparing it that way because of just the archetypes of the characters.
Right.
But I would say the story itself does deviate pretty heavily. Deviate pretty heavily from Star Wars. I mean,
right. Like
yeah.
a few examples. This guy here, he's like the town wizard of the little people. I think he might be my favorite character.
Yeah.
He's not in a lot of scenes, but he's very memorable in the scenes he is in.
Yeah, he's played by Billy Barty, who was a famous little person actor. He'd been in Although he was in the infamous live action Masters of the Universe movie.
Oof.
Yeah, but yeah.
This was a better one to be in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But like they in the early scene, he's oh I have the bones. The bones tell me all.
Yeah.
Well, the bones tell me nothing. Do you want to go with this child?
Yeah.
And but to get back on track with the actual critique rather than the sidetrack here, so I would say that the effects haven't necessarily aged all that well.
Yeah, quite a lot of stop motion. Yeah.
Not even the stop motion, because of course I'm biased. I love stop motion. I actually could tell, oh, that was Phil Tippett's work,
Yeah.
because you might know him as the guy who did the AT-AT attack in Empire Strikes Back and the Rancor. He just has this particular way of filming and animating things that is immediately distinctive, in kind of the same way that Ray Harryhausen is.
Yeah.
He was originally going to do the special effects for all of Jurassic Park until they showed up and showed what the CGI could do.
Yeah.
I've seen the clips on his YouTube channel, which is interesting to poke at, because they actually have a bit where, in that, like, for whatever reason, I don't know what he did, because he had actually done dinosaur documentary stuff and knew what dinosaurs were like. He had the velociraptors have forked tongues like snakes.
Huh.
And like be sniffing around with their tongues. That was weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's again off topic. And I don't want to make it seem like this is a bad movie.
No, it's no, it's a good movie. Yeah.
Like, it's a little bit standard fantasy nowadays, but we're also 30 odd years later, after loads and like this was more special in the 80s, I think.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And that was the other thing too. In the '80s, there was a bit of an explosion in fantasy movies.
Yeah, I think we can thank Conan for that.
Yeah.
So and this was like this was very different than the Conan inspired stuff, because well, no nudity.
Right. Yeah. And violence is really tamped down to get that
Yep.
PG rating. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing I found interesting was that it did there were a lot of creative choices made that just seemed a little off kilter. Like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like things like when they come across a witch who they save, like a good witch. Her first form she's in is, of all things, an Australian possum. Like, I was like, what is that animal? Like, I didn't quite recognize it, but it looked vaguely familiar. I almost thought it was a bush baby or one of those, like, or a tarsier or something, but no, it was an Australian possum.
Huh.
There's also like a lot of body horror for a kids movie.
Yeah. Yeah. The scene when there's one scene in particular where Willow uses his magic on one of the trolls, and then it turns into this Cronenberg-esque thing. Yeah.
Like this ball that falls into a lake and then emerges as a two-headed dragon.
Yeah.
Like that was horrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, like, again, like, lots of odd choices. And I think it's interesting that, and I kind of think I did this too with my novels. It's like, okay, I did one series where I have kind of a hard magic system where shapeshifting isn't a thing. So the next one, I'm going to lean into shapeshifting and use it all over the place. Like, there's a lot of that in this movie. Okay.
Oh yeah. You mentioned the older witch that they find, and Willow keeps trying to bring her back into her human form, and she keeps turning into one animal after another.
Yeah. To be fair, a crow is a big step up from being a possum, just for a getting around perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
I also want to praise Val Kilmer as Mad Mardigan. I've heard people talk about the character fondly over the years, and I see why now.
Yeah,
He's just a
yeah,
lot of fun.
yeah. Yeah, he's a lot of fun, and he's and he's there when it counts. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that the princess over here is much less memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you kind of had a funny thing where because she's the daughter of the evil queen, and then she turns on her mom because oh, Mad Mardigan.
Yep. Look, Val Kilmer was a very handsome man in the 80s.
Yeah.
Now, so the effects that I really think that aged the worst were they had these two annoying characters who were basically like little Jar Jars who were the brownies,
Yeah.
and they were not composited well into some scenes.
No, you could really tell, especially with the HD. Yeah, the HD transfer, yeah, it looked a little jarring.
Yeah, the lines around them, and yeah, there's just not a good time. Characters that I wish they had kind of left out.
Yeah, yeah, they really didn't do much.
No, of course, that's there for the 5-year-olds who would think that the guys who sounded like the Monty Python Frenchman on on Helium would be funny.
Yeah, and they even do a little. They have a little reference to Gulliver's Travels with them.
Yeah. So I think overall it was a good time. Just it wasn't a huge success because it's a baseline hit of a movie as opposed to like a home run like Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, and I think. And I don't know how well I think it's one of those movies that it didn't do that well when it came out, but it kind of got a bit of a cult following, and
Yeah, like it was profitable in theaters, but not immensely so.
Yeah, and of course we all know that after the Disney acquisition of Lucasfilm, that they did the TV series, and of course we haven't watched that, and that's only half the story.
That is not going to change.
Yeah.
I was really thinking as I was watching it, man, or especially at the end of it, man, there really isn't a continuation to be had here. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Any sequel is going to have to make up everything out of whole cloth. You don't even have anything like Darth Vader getting away in that TIE fighter.
Right.
To imply that there could be future evil, which, boy, that is one of the all-time great prescient things to not do. Like, imagine if there was an alternate cut where Vader did seem to die. Like that would have made Lucas's life so much harder writing Empire.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, but although real quick as we wrap it up, of course, like Val Kilmer and then the actress who plays the princess, Joanne Whalley, they actually got married.
Really?
Yeah. After they did this movie, Kilmer actually, I watched his documentary on Amazon Prime, and he actually had a big crush on her for a few years. He was in London shooting a movie, and he saw a play with her in it, and he went, "Oh wow!" And he just fell in love with her, and he wanted to meet her, but he was like, "Oh, I'm just some lowly actor, she doesn't want to meet me." And then,
that's great.
Yeah. Although unfortunately they got divorced a few years later.
I was wondering.
Yeah. And actually they got divorced while he was filming The Island of Dr. Moreau. Which is kind of one of the reasons why he was a bit of a jerk when they were making that movie.
Yeah. I was going to say that's a story that, much like Willow itself, was sweet until you tried to continue it.
Yeah, I know. But speaking of Willow, Warwick Davis was only 17 when he made this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Which that implies he was way younger than I thought when he was Wicket.
He was a little. Jedi. Yeah, he was a little kid. He was like, he'd be like 11 or 12. Yeah.
Wow, 17, and he already had a wife and 2 kids.
I know, yeah.
That does explain a few things, actually.
Mhm.
Uh, Although he was good in the role, like he's not Shakespearean or anything, but this was not a Shakespearean production.
Yeah, that's that's very true. But yeah, no, yeah, he was really good in this movie. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
enough about good-ish stuff from the past. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the current crap.
Yes.
Although